What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we're going to take a look at Gotham Knights performance here on the Steam Deck for SteamOS and Windows. We originally tested this back at launch, and there's been a lot of patches and changes to the OSs, and I want to get in and check out how performance is doing now compared to launch. And we've had some different patches out since launch, but more importantly, in November at the beginning, we got a patch for stability and GPU optimization for low and medium quality presets, which I was hoping would help make more of a difference on the deck. It helped my local PC much more than it did the deck on SteamOS though, but we'll take a look at that. We had another update that had came out that also helped with some more of that stability and graphics when it came to frame pacing and that type of thing, stability of the frame rate, because we've had a lot of issues with that. And that definitely did help both on the Steam Deck for SteamOS and for Windows. Then we had another patch come out in mid-December that further was supposed to optimize the performance of the GPU and CPU, as we've had a lot of issues with that, but I didn't notice any huge differences for that, at least not for the Steam Deck anyways, when it came to Gotham Knights. So I'm using the same settings that I used at launch, which was 800p here for SteamOS, FSR2 on quality, all this stuff here turned off, and then low on here, which pretty much worked out well enough for the game. But you can see here back at launch what our performance was like with our frame times and with our frame rate here pretty low in the 20s most of the time, and things feeling pretty janky, losing frames more often, like getting more dips than you would normally want to see. When I compare that to today, even though we still get the lower frame rates here, we do have a little bit more of a stable experience, and this is where I was talking about those frame times, the pacing being a bit better, and you can see that in the frame time graph there. So a little bit better on the FPS, not a huge jump, but definitely a smoother experience when it came to gameplay here on SteamOS. Now, also back at launch, when you were on the bike, you could go down to 17, 18 FPS quite often and have a lot of issues when traveling around the city. Now when you jump forward to today, it's still going to be low on the FPS. It has a lot of trouble still with this, but it doesn't quite go down as bad or feel as bad as before. Combat was also all over the place at launch when it came to your frame times, and things would feel a little janky with the inputs from time to time. And when it comes to today's performance, again, that frame pacing and frame time issue definitely made a big difference with the game, but they still need to get the GPU and CPU usage up and doing better and optimize better so we can get more frame rate out of the game. I know it's capable, but you can see here I was actually holding a fairly respectable 30 and up for the most part here when it came to today, and just kind of traversing around the city and playing the game in general here on SteamOS since the original launch. It's not perfect in any way, but it certainly is a lot better than it was now a few months later. Now, if we jump over to Windows, if you guys remember my original video, as you'll see here, back when it launched, I could never get the game to stay running very well. We would constantly go down to 4 FPS and just get frozen and stuck and have a lot of issues. I tried all the different fixes I could think of for Windows to get this to work, and I just never was really able to, around launch, to get it to work very well. But if we fast forward to today on Windows, the experience is definitely much better. And while I did have to run the game in 720p this time in Windows instead of 800p, due to my capture card giving me some 800p issues here with Windows, performance should largely basically be the same. Not a big difference there in our 720 to 800. Frame times are a little odd when it comes to some of the pacing and stuff, but for the most part, gameplay feels fairly smooth, and you do hold a much better FPS, of course, than I was. I don't have any more of that getting stuck on 4 FPS or losing a whole bunch of performance depending on where I am. It certainly runs better on Windows than SteamOS these days, I can say that. Even traversing around the city, there are times you'll still get down to 30 FPS, maybe even 28, but I don't see those big dips to 17 or 18 anymore, and it's certainly running pretty well here for me. Now, jumping around to this same spot we were at on Windows before, where we hit that 4 FPS that I showed you here in the beginning, things stay pretty good, pretty smooth here. This area is pretty notorious for just kind of dropping down to about 28 FPS on me, but here on Windows, it performed pretty well. Even getting into combat, similar thing. I mean, we're able to fairly maintain above 30 FPS here, sometimes reaching into the 40s on Windows. And if I go to SteamOS and check things out, it's more around 30 to 35, but we could dip more So it's definitely interesting there when it comes to those two. But when it comes to playing Gotham Knights now, SteamOS is slightly improved on the frame pacing and maybe a few FPS better. We still need more CPU and GPU optimization though. Over on the Windows side, I'm certainly getting much better performance and playable performance versus when the game first came out. And in my opinion, the game is more playable on Windows currently still than it is over on SteamOS. And that's pretty much the current situation with Gotham Knights here on the Steam Deck for both operating systems. So anyways, guys, I hope you found the video useful. Thanks a lot for coming to watch as always, and I'll see you guys in the next one.